So it took me a while to get the assignment posted that was in connection to the, there's Demetrius. Good morning, Demetrius.
Good morning.
So last week I had posted the day supply assignment under the worksheet handouts, and yesterday I finally got the key, the actual assignment posted. A couple of you have already completed it. There was actually a couple corrections, so I fixed those. It won't affect anybody coming in to do it that hasn't submitted. But what you're going to do when you do this is you're going to come in and you're going to put your answers from this handout. So hopefully you had all done that last week. So all you have to do is go in and put in your responses. Make sure that you double check the questions so you're putting the right answers in the right place. And that is under week 4 day supply assignments. So you'll put them in there. Once you do that, it'll let you access a key. So I went and I worked out all the problems and fixed it on the key. Although now I need to go back and look at my key to make sure that I hadn't messed something up on the key, because I was following that and I'm thinking, because there were 2 errors originally. And part of that happened because I had almost completed the key and then lost it and had to redo it. So I was trying to get it up. I think I rushed a little bit. But there's an answer key. I explained how to work it out. Definitely you need to communicate with me after you review that if you're not understanding why the answer was what it was. So you've got to look at that word problem. You have to break the word problem down first and identify. So if it says in each eye, nostril, ear, that means you're doing 2 doses. Each is 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So it's multiplied by whatever the amount is by 2, because it's going in 2 places. That's just one of the little hints on that one. Now, I also posted test 2 review this morning. So we're going to do the test this week. I haven't decided on a deadline for it. We are going to start new material, so I don't want it to go too far beyond. But the test review, some of the things that you'll need to remember, like how many drops are in a milliliter, what does U100 mean, that kind of thing. And then it's dosing problems. And then there's some that have labels on them. And then there's questions. You receive this order, so it's asking questions. There's some in here that ask a little bit about the label. Then some calculations that are involved. So lots and lots and lots of practice. And today and tomorrow I'll be working on the key on that. I think I'm going to have the test up tomorrow, and it'll be due, I'll give you to Friday, just because we've got a lot going on this week, to get this test done. So, and then of course the answers will be posted into the assignment. So ask me questions about what your challenges have been, and if you haven't put your answers in to the online, that's okay. You can ask questions on the assignment and see if we can work through where were some of your challenges. I will bring up the worksheet and then we can go through that. Let's see, supply assignment. Or if you had any dosing from the previous assignment, that's fine too. You can ask those. Oops, I don't think that large. I will share my screen. So calculating day supply. Any questions? How we feeling on this?
So for the drops is the question I had. How did you get the number that you got for the um? I'm trying to see which one it
Up
was.
here?
It wasn't not that one. The second one.
Yeah, the answer was incorrect in the key. You had answered it correctly.
Okay.
Yeah, because previously I had a 5 milliliter vial there, and my brain was
Mm-hmm.
still remembering that. I forgot I changed it to a 10 milliliter. So that was my bad.
Yeah.
I fixed it.
Okay.
When we have inhalers, that would be one to talk about maybe. Inhalers and sprays, you always need to look at the number that is available. Oh, great. Let me see. It's not going to let me. My computer decides which day it's going to let me write on which screen. Today, it doesn't want to write on screen 2, it only wants to write on screen 1. So let's try that again. Okay, so the packaging will usually indicate, so for inhalers and sprays, you will be given the number of doses in the container. So here it's 200-meter dose in inhalations. So it may be listed as inhalations. It may say sprays. It may be actuations. And it'll tell you, so this one has 200 puffs basically. So the order would be written as puffs often. So we'll say 2 puffs, QID. So that would be 2 puffs times 4 times a day. So that would be 8 puffs per day. So this is 200 puffs, 200 doses, and you need 8 doses per day. So you would solve for X. And then that would say that this is going to last 25 days. So this would be a day's supply. If you have a spray type of thing, or even a drops, like ear drops, eye drops, things like that. So let's say we had a spray, a nasal spray. And let's say that the spray told us that there was 80 meter doses. And that just means that every time that you activate that spray, the same amount comes out. It's calibrated. Calibrated means that it always delivers the same amount every time. So if it has 80 meter doses and you're going to do 1 spray in each nostril, okay, each nostril, that means there's 2. And maybe we're going to do it BID. How often is BID?
Twice a day.
Twice a day. So that's 2 times a day and 1 spray. So by doing this, that just helps me figure out, oh, okay, how many doses per day? So that would be 4 doses per day. And if I have 80, then this would last 20 days. So you have to think. It's the same thing with eardrops and eye drops. If it says each ear, we would have to, say, okay, that's 2 ears times however many drops it's telling us. So if we do eardrops, let's do eardrops as an example. And we'll say 2 drops each ear every 8 hours. So each ear means there's 2, right? There's 2 ears. 2 drops every 8 hours, 3 doses. So 2 times 2 is 4, times 3 is 12 doses. Or in this case, 12 drops. We gotta do drops first. Okay, and let's say we had a 5 milliliter vial for eardrops. And if we remember that there's 20 drops per mil, that would be a total of 100 drops. So if I need 12 drops every day and I started with 100 drops, that would last, what's my calculator? There we go. 8 days. You can only do whole days. Not almost, not 2.5, not, this would be 8.33333. I only have 8 full days. Whatever the whole number is what we count. That's how insurance works. So that's how we do it. So this vial would last 8 days. Well, if the patient needed to be on it for 2 weeks, then maybe we need a 10 milliliter vial if it's available instead of a 5 milliliter vial. But you have to take into consideration all of these pieces. When you're talking about locations, you have to know the number of locations. Right? If you're using it orally, it's only 1 location. But if you're putting it on another part of your body, if it's a patch, it's only going in 1 place. But if it's drops, if it's sprays, like your nose sprays, those types of things, even if you've got some kind of, excuse me, some kind of rash or something like that, maybe there's more than 1 location on the body that you're applying the cream, that type of thing, then you would also need to multiply it by however many areas that are being impacted. Questions?
Miss Ann, you see where you have the 5 milliliters and then in parentheses you have 20
Yep.
drops. Do we have to remember that? Like
Yes. You have to remember there's 20 drops per milliliter.
Okay.
Yep. You have to remember that 1 application of a cream or an ointment is 1 gram, unless you're told otherwise. You have to remember that U100 is the measurement for insulin. and that means 100 units per milliliter. So on your test review, that I posted, I have that here at the top, those little things to help you remember. And we've only talked about grams to milligrams, and we've only talked about teaspoons to milliliters. So that's all that will be potentially on this test. But we are going to start doing conversions, and then you'll have to memorize those conversions. So any other questions with day supply or quantity to dispense? So you have to look at your packages. So here, you know, the size of the container. Now, when it comes in a dose pack of some sort, like a Z pack or a Medrol pack, you just follow the instructions and it'll tell you how many days, type of thing. Birth control, usually 21 or 28 days, depending on the birth control.
Good morning, Miss L.
Yes, ma'am.
I have question on 26. Question number 26. I think not here. Flonase 16 gram. That one. Yeah,
It had
this one.
120 doses in the container.
Then will be 30, and if I calculate with the 200 milligram, then it comes different.
Don't worry
Why?
about the 200. Here it's telling you how many is in each container. You're not doing it based on milligrams. You're doing it based on how many doses are in the container.
So then that information don't need, like.
Right. So what you're really looking for whenever you have an inhaler or a spray, you're looking for how many are in each container, more than looking for this information, because it's being ordered by the spray. So if this container gives me 120 sprays of the measured dose. So with sprays, there's some things. So the first time that you use it, it may not be primed. That's a term that we use. So think about anything that you have at home that has a pump, right? The first time you push down that pump, do you always get the full amount out of that pump? Maybe you do, maybe you don't.
Yeah.
You've got to make sure that, you know, you pump it the first time so that it fills up with the right amount for the second pump. So the first pump is priming it. So whether you get the right amount or you don't, we don't usually spray those. We don't usually inhale those. We usually do it off to the side. Then the next one is a full dose. So there can be more in the container, but what this is saying, and think about when you get down to the bottom of a container, right? And sometimes you have to pump it 3 times just to get enough out, because that little tube inside isn't quite reaching the bottom anymore. So there could be more in there than what we're, you know, that's going to be the right amount for the dose. So we're going to look for that information on the container that tells us how many doses there are. So this 120 meter doses means there's 120 sprays.
Yeah, I calculate 2 way, then it comes one way 80, another way 30. Then I thought, let's use the information first one.
Yeah.
So that's why I got wrong.
Yeah. So this one is 2 sprays per nostril, right? That's your nose.
Yeah.
There's 2 openings. So that's a 2.
That comes 4.
That's a 2. Yep. And once daily. So 4 doses per day.
So that way comes 30, and I calculate other way. 1600 milligram divided by 200 milligram, that comes 80. So I think so much, then select the
Sure.
80.
Yeah, sometimes it can be confusing.
Okay. And the other one, I think 18, number 18.
Okay. Which one is 18?
18, Ultram 50 milligram, 20 tablets. Yeah, that one per day is need 12 tablets. So I thought 8 left, so maybe around 2 days.
So what you have to remember is you're always going to go with the most,
Yeah.
okay, and the most frequent. So Q4 hours is 6 doses.
Yeah, that comes 12 per day. So
Q6 hours is 4 doses.
4 doses, yeah.
Okay, we don't want that one. We want this one.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 times 6 is 12 doses per day.
Yeah.
20 divided by 12 is only 1 day. You can only get 1 full day out of that.
So, Miss Ann,
Yes.
when we have questions like that, always go with how you did it just now. The more frequent
Yes.
doses.
So we're going to assume that patients are going to take the maximum amount as often as they can. It may not be, because these are PRN, which means as needed. And different insurance companies have different rules for what day supply is on that. I'm not going to teach you a whole bunch of exceptions. Right now, we're just doing the math part of it. Somebody who uses Ultram, maybe they only take 1 tablet a day. It's going to last that patient 10, 20 days. But that's not every patient. So we're going to assume they're going to take the maximum amount, the most frequently. So if that's the case, this patient is only going to last 1 day. Well, in reality, are they going to probably take it every 6 hours? Well, they may or may not, depending on, if they're sleeping and they're not in pain, they're not just going to wake up. They're not going to set their alarm to get up and take a pill if they don't need it, right? But if they were in a lot of pain, it's only going to last them a little over a day. According to the insurance, according to our day supply, that's only 1 day.
Yeah, that's why I thought around 2.
There's no nearly anything. Okay. It's a whole day. It either is or it isn't. Mm-hmm. Just like homework assignments, right? Once the clock ticks to tomorrow, it's a whole nother day.
So if you would have did it with 4 doses, it still would have came out as 1, or maybe 2 or 3, right? Days.
If we did 2 doses 4 times a day, that would be 8. 8 divided by 20, it would be 2 days. Because that would be 16.
So either answer would have been correct.
No. You can't use the 4 doses. It has to be the maximum frequency. Or most frequent, I should say.
Okay.
You don't pick. You pick the one. If I can get more doses out of it, you want the most amount, the highest dose.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to. That's what I was trying to understand.
So that's 2 tablets is the highest dose, and the most frequent dosing. The thing is, why we do this is we don't want them to run out, right? We want that to be considered that this is how they're going to take it. And when it goes into the hospital, it kind of makes a little bit more sense, because at that point, we're dispensing enough for them to get through 24 hours at a time. So in that way, if I look at it in quantity to dispense, let's flip it over here. Maybe that'll help you visualize. If I get this prescription and I don't have a quantity, let me do one thing. Let me copy the screen first. All right, so now let's look at this different. Let's look at this as a quantity to dispense. Okay, and we're gonna say, in this case, dispense enough for 3 days. Okay, so I would do the same thing. I would say that they will take the maximum with the most frequent okay, so that tells me that I need 12 tabs per day. Now, if I needed it for 3 days, I would need to dispense how much?
36 tablets.
I'd have to give them 36 tablets. Does that help visualize it a little better? Now, that doesn't mean after the 3 days, they've taken all 36. But it means that they're not going to run out if they're told that they can have 3 days supply. I can't give them 21 and have them run out on day 2.
Got it. Yes, sir.
Does that help give a better understanding?
Yeah. Yes, I got it now.
Okay, so if you think of it on the quantity to dispense side first, and then go back to the how many days will this last me kind of thing. And this can get tricky. In a couple of units, we're going to do refill adjustments, which adds a whole nother twist to this. But I want to give it a little time before we go into that. I want to make sure we get here. We're going to do some other stuff, then we'll come back and bring it back around. So what other questions did you have on this?
I don't have any more.
Okay.
That's all.
So like I said, go in. Hopefully you've completed this worksheet. Go in, put your answers in, and then put a comment if you have questions, and then I'll come back. But go and look at the key after you submit this. I didn't put all the answers like for each question in the quiz, because that would have taken me too long to like make all that. So I just did a key separate. And the key like has all the drawing like I've been doing. So if I even just take, for example, this one right here, this cyclobenzaprine, So that would be one dose, one tab per dose times 3 doses per day equals 3 tabs per day. And then if I use that and set up my solve for X, I have 30 tabs. That's going to last me 10 days. So this is what my key kind of looks like. And I did a little color coding with it. So I calculated like the number of tablets or dose units and then did the solve for X in a different color. Because, you know, as I say, I'm a visual. But that way too, maybe it'll help differentiate for you. Okay, so let me do this. I want to put up a whiteboard. Okay, so make sure that you submit day supply assignment. Your answers. And after you do that, you'll be able to see the key. Then you'll let me know if you have questions. All right. Your test review is posted. And that's test 2. And then you will submit your answers. Available later today. Oops. And test 2 will be due Friday. All right, today we are going to start conversions. Which we've already done a couple, right? Knowing that there's 20 drops in 1 mil. Oops. That looks like a not equal sign. Let me fix that. Or 1 teaspoon is equal to 5 mils, or 1 gram is equal to 1,000 milligrams. Those are all conversions. So the thing about conversions, we use different systems of measurement, and that's really what it's about. It's about systems of measurement. When we are doing conversions and we're talking about systems of measurement, there are 2 systems that we use mostly in the US. We use the metric system. So Shanta, being from another country, is more familiar with the metric system than she probably was with what we use as a common system in the US.
Yeah, we never use pounds over there.
Yeah, almost every country, every nation,
Yeah.
I think there's only 4 right now that doesn't use metric as their primary system. And believe it or not, it's actually the official system for the US. We just don't use it. So the metric system. Now this is good because it helps us ensure patient safety. And it uses decimals. So it's a lot easier. So we use this in medicine a lot. Now, what we use as our common system is called household. So this is the one with teaspoons and ounces, pounds. We'll look at those in a minute. We have to do conversions. And really, this also has fractions, which make it all the more complicated. Now, another system of measurement is called the apothecary, which is also known as the avoirdupois. Which is an old system. When we think apothecary, apothecary is a medicine shop, basically. Yeah, avoirdupois. So when we do apothecary, this is old, and it's got weird measurements, and it measures grains, and it measures things like minims and scruples, but it also uses ounces, pounds, but the pound in apothecary and doesn't match a pound in household. Very confusing. This is old pharmacy. We still use some of the measures, so we will learn a couple, but we're not going to learn the whole apothecary conversion. It'll be on a chart that I give you, but that's a nice trivia question. So we're really not going to focus a lot on this one. We're going to focus primarily on metric and household. And the reason that we use household is because our patients are familiar with it. So it's something that they're comfortable with. So when we're dealing with systems of measurement, we're measuring generally, there's 3 different types of things that can be measured. We can measure distance. We can measure weight, which in actuality is mass, and we can measure volume. So distance in pharmacy, we don't really measure distance. It may say apply an inch of an ointment or a cream, or apply a centimeter, especially with an eye ointment. But other than that, we really don't use distance. Not use much in pharmacy. Our focus is going to be on weight and on volume. So weight or mass measures solids, and volume measures liquids. Now we can put them together, like with a dosage strength, how many milligrams per milliliter, or in the context of what we call specific gravity, but we'll get into that whole conversation another time. But what we're going to do is we're going to focus on those weight and volume measures. So, to start with, We are going to start with the metric because metric is easier to learn. It's all on a system of tens. So we have weight and we have volume. Now your primary unit, and some talk about it as like a number scale, and we think about our main unit. Our main unit is a gram. Right? GM. That's our main central unit. Now we have some that are larger, right? This end is bigger. This end is smaller. And we have 2 units on the smaller side. Who knows what's bigger than a gram?
Kilogram?
A kilogram. All right. What's smaller than a gram?
Milligram?
I'm sorry?
Milligram? Microgram?
And then we have a
Microgram?
microgram. Now, this is all about a factor of 1,000. What factor means is you will either multiply or divide by 1,000. So if I'm looking at this, the space in between each of these areas has a value of 1,000. So if we look at it kind of like a measuring stick, now this isn't 2,000, this is 1,000 times 1,000. So if I want to go from kilograms to milligrams, it's 1,000 grams and then 1,000 milligrams. So it's 1,000 times 1,000. Now, let's think easy, okay? When you go from bigger to smaller, think about money. $1 is equal to how many pennies?
100.
100. I went from bigger to smaller. It's about the unit. The value of the unit. When you go from bigger to smaller, you multiply. When you go from smaller to bigger, you divide. So if I had 200 grams and I needed to know how many kilograms that was, I would divide by 1,000. Now, if this is confusing, solve for X. So if I know that there is, in 1 kilogram, there's 1,000 grams, how many kilograms are in 200 grams? Oops, that's a GM, not a GR. I don't want to confuse you there. So what that is 200 divided by 1,000. Now the rule of multiply from bigger to smaller and divide from smaller to bigger, it works across all of the different units. What makes metric so much easy is it's always 1,000. And if I think about it each step, if I was going to make that 200 milligrams is equal to how many kilograms, well, now my decimal point gets smaller. Or if I say 2 kilograms is equal to how many milligrams, then that gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So gram is your central. Now, kind of think of this also kind of like a decimal point in a way. That's kind of your middle line. And then you got the smaller on this side of the line, and you got the bigger on this side. Now, when we talk about volume, we're only going to be concerned with two different volumes. So the main unit of measure is a liter. And the only other one we're concerned with is a milliliter. And milli means 1,000. So there's 1,000 between those two brackets. Questions? Okay, let's see. 2 liters is equal to how many milliliters?
$2,000 milliliter.
It's equal to 2,000. So could this be solved? One, you could say that 1 liter is equal to 1,000 milliliters, and then you could set it up. And that gives you 2,000 milliliters. Or you can think of your rule that when I go from bigger to smaller, multiply by 1,000. So 2 times 1,000 is 2,000. And I also just like to write out my timeline when I'm doing that. That way I always know what I'm doing. All right, let's say 1.5 grams are equal to how many micrograms? Well, if I look at my line, I have to figure out milligrams in the middle. So each of these is 1,000. Now this is where dimensional analysis is very helpful. So dimensional analysis, this is where we use the units to cancel. So if I say, okay, I'm starting with grams, and I want to cancel grams. What do I know about grams, and in this case, milligrams? There's 1,000 milligrams in 1 gram. Now I've canceled my milligrams. Oops. But that leaves me milligrams. I want micrograms. Micrograms on top. Okay. What do I know about milligrams and micrograms? There's 1,000 micrograms in 1 milligram. That leaves me with my microgram unit. And now I can do my math. So 1.5 times 1,000 is 1,500 times 1,000
15 lakh.
is 1,500,000.
Here also 1 lakh also don't use. You know 1 lakh?
1 lakh?
Yeah, this is 15 lakh. We called.
I'm not familiar with that unit.
Yeah. Here is you said 1,050,000. Total we call this 15 lakh.
Oh, yeah, that's we don't want to confuse what we're trying to learn. That's not something, that's not a unit that we use.
Yeah.
So it would be 1,000 or 1,500,000. So let's go the other way. Let's say So in both of these cases, we went from bigger to smaller and we multiplied. Let's go from smaller to bigger. So smaller to bigger. Let's say we have 750 milliliters and we need to know how many liters that is. So because this is just one step on that scale, it's easy to do a solve for X. So I would say that 1 liter is 1,000 milliliters. So X is 750 milliliters. Do my cross multiplication. 750 divided by 1,000 is equal to 0.75. Now, I dropped off that 0 because that's a trailing 0. So it's just 0.75. And if I'm going to do metric, let's say I'm going from milligrams, and let's say I have 125 milligrams, and I want to know how many kilograms that is. So again, I'm going to make my little line. Okay, so I've got to do 2 spots, basically. And each one is worth 1,000. So I'm going to multiply 1,000 by 1,000, or in this case, because I'm going from smaller to bigger, I'm going to divide. So when I set this up, I've got my 125 milligrams. I need milligrams on the bottom. What do I know about milligrams? Milligrams goes to grams. 1 gram is 1,000 milligrams. Okay, then my milligrams cancel. Now I need to cancel my grams to my kilograms. Grams cancel, and that's 1,000 grams in 1 kilogram. So now I have 125, and this is 1,000 times 1,000, which technically is a million. But if I put it in my calculator, the easier way to plug it into my calculator is to go 125 divided by 1,000 equals divided by 1,000 equals. And then I get this long, let's see if I can get it in the right light. There we go. So I get all of those decimal places. So 0.000125. Now some of you are like, well, multiples of 10, blah, 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 move my decimal, count the zeros. If you get that, you understand that, you can do that, just verify. I'm not going to spend the time and possibly confuse another student who that's just too much information overload. Questions so far?
So on my calculator, I have 1.25 E minus 0.4.
Nope.
So you just need to.
Do not
That's
do,
wrong?
ooh, I didn't save that. Do not use a scientific calculator or
Oh,
turn
okay.
off the scientific mode. You need a basic calculator. Unless you know what that means, that you need to put all those zeros in there, scientific calculators will not serve you. We need basic, basic, basic. Because what's that saying? It's saying that you have to put in decimal point and add those zeros to the left of the number. And then the decimal, yeah. Don't use a scientific. Turn off scientific. And on your, in your quiz, in your assignments, I'm posting the calculator. on the page, and I'm using a basic calculator. I'm not letting it do scientific notation. So metric, you're either going to multiply by 1,000 or divide by 1,000 for each interval. Measurement interval. Metric's pretty basic, pretty simple. So I'm going to be putting some metric problems up for you. Now, I do the little timeline, but for some people, they like more of a table version. So if you want to start with your largest unit, so here I'm going to put weight, here I'm going to put volume. Well, the volume's easy because there's only one interval. 1 kilogram is equal to 1,000 grams. 1 gram is equal to 1,000 milligrams. 1 milligram is equal to 1,000 micrograms. So if you like a table version, there's a table version for you. And then this gives you all of those pieces that you need to solve for X in a table version kind of approach. You do need to memorize this because most of the math from here on out will have this metric conversion in it. We'll do some household conversions. We're going to do those on Wednesday. So I'm going to put up a metric assignment. Due tomorrow night. Just quick and easy. Just a few metric conversions. Maybe 10 questions. And then I'll just put extra practice if you need it. What kind of questions you got for me today? So you're going to go in, you're going to put in your day supply answers, check your work, start working on that exam review. We'll go over that on Wednesday. Your test is due on Friday. And then this metric assignment will be due tomorrow. And then I can check it for Wednesday as well. Okay. All right. You can reach out if you have questions. You know how to find me. And I will see you all on Wednesday. Y'all have a great afternoon.
All right, you too.
Thanks.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, you too. Have a nice day.